All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We have a nearly full quorum. Everyone but Catherine is here. Who's online? Good girl.
Hi, John.
Hi, Russ. Hi, Pat.
We were just talking about reviewing and approving the minutes of last month's meeting, but I guess we've got to find them and resend them to everyone.
Yeah.
I know I read them last month, and I think I commented to you that they look perfect, but unless that was the month before.
You did, yeah.
I think I did. But we'll resend them. Treasurer's report.
It is the same as it was last month.
It should not be the same as last time. We supposedly paid two people.
But I think that that's what it was last month.
I did not get over to the treasurer's office today. I was going to try it, but I got tied up to see if Jim Rock had ever gotten the second check mailed, because supposedly the first check that was mailed back in January never arrived at his residence. So we asked the treasurer to cancel it and resend it, and I have not heard if it's been resent.
I figured I might hear something from Kathy Taylor, but I have not, one way or the other. I can contact her tomorrow and see, if she has heard anything from Jim Rock. But the general fund is $1,000, and the historical commission donation fund is $917.17. That's after we had taken that money out of the donation fund. So that's what the report is for this month.
Very good. Thank you. Number 3, Heritage Park sign. This is the current sign in the shed over at the park. We got a quote we got 3 quotes. Craig has worked very hard on this over the last
Yes, he has.
And we got
Good
a
job, Craig.
quote from Signs Plus. They quoted $4,200 for a 4x4. Craig went back to him and said, no, it's not a 4x4. We want it to be the same size or as close as you can get it to what it is, which is a 5x6. They came back with no explanation whatsoever, Craig.
Yeah.
Just $10,320. Thank you very much. So we have a quote from Heritage Sign Plus for $10,320 for a 5x6, presumably carved sign. So
That's what is that one? 5x6, you said? What is that?
this is 5 feet by 6 feet.
Yeah, something like that.
Within a few inches
So
of it.
4x4 wouldn't do it.
Well, let's not get stuck there for a moment.
Okay.
We got a second quote. Looks like I printed 2 of the same one, but didn't print the other one. Got a quote from a company in Connecticut for $4,000 and some change, less than
32.
4,100.
32.
$4,032.
Yeah.
And that is not a carved sign. That is a 5 feet by 6 feet, 2-inch thick, high density urethane. Background and border painted with acrylic latex, hand carved and painted mural. That is not delivery from Connecticut, and that is not installation. So you could probably add another $500 or $600 or $700 to get it here, unless we could go down and pick it up in some fashion
And install it and
install it and all of it.
Installation.
And then we have the third quote, which was the first one that Craig started working on last fall. And that is a rough sketch matching the shape of this one. 5 foot by 6 foot, that would be buying a 5 foot by 10 foot urethane panel. So I would suspect that's what these other two would have to buy. They don't say that, but I got that detail this morning. So it's a 1.5 inch thick, high density urethane, 5 foot by 10 foot panel, of which they would cut out a 5 foot by 6 foot panel. They would hand carve the center oval design. They would do a tracing using tracing paper, I believe, of the hand carved portion in order to then duplicate it onto the new panel and hand carve it to match as closely as reasonable. The letters would be embossed letters using acrylic lettering that would be fastened with an automotive tape. Apparently a very durable, long-lasting automotive tape that would not be visible would attach them to the sign, but all this would be carved and painted. For a grand total of $1,328. So back to what you were saying, my reaction would be to immediately discount the one from Signs Plus. A, because it has no detail whatsoever. Secondly, because they complained about the size. And thirdly, because it exceeds the money we've requested from the CPC to do it anyways. So that leaves us with a company in Middlefield, Connecticut for $4,000. It would be hand carved and painted letters, hand carved and painted mural, painted with acrylic paint, bracket work to attach it, but not delivered and not attached. And BBT that would do it, assuming we get approval in May. You know the date of the town meeting in May? I guess it's 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th.
Yeah,
I believe
yeah.
it's May 4th.
24th. Okay.
Thank you.
If we get approval, we could give BBT the heads up immediately after the meeting, but they said it would be likely they would not start it until the fall. That being said, the guy told me it would only take them 6 weeks to make this sign. They would pick this one up. They would need it for a couple of days. They said, if you pick it up, you can keep it for the whole 6 weeks to duplicate it to make a new sign for $1,328. I was initially thinking to go with a professional company to make it, but with a $3,000 cost difference and some very talented kids in our schools. Anybody have any thoughts, comments, opinions?
I think that we should go with Valley Tech. I know that, they have good instruction and they're not going to be doing something that, they don't feel confident that they can accomplish and do a good job. So I think that, their instructors are going to look at it carefully and, they're not going to put the kids on a job that they don't feel that they can accomplish successfully. So I think we should go with Valley Tech. And I think that, we should definitely advertise the fact after we get the sign that it was done by Valley Tech. And I think the townspeople will be glad to know that, we're using them and saving costs to the town. So I think it's a good choice for us.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve BVT's proposal, manufacturer sign for $1,328. Do I have any seconds?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion?
I think it's a good decision.
Yeah,
Mm.
so,
It's local and
and
it's good, it's a good feather in their cap of Blackstone Valleys.
To Joan's point, we could always see if we could find someone to make a small advertising sign to put in the ground while it's being done. We could put that in this summer if we could find someone to make one for a couple $100 and use the CPC funds to make a sign advertising.
You could use some CPC funds.
that's a good idea.
CPC funding will do that too. You gotta keep that
We have to
funded
make,
by CPC.
we have to make a sign for the Grange if all that gets approved. So it would be a good exercise to find someone, even BBT might make a small acrylic sign for, $100 or something, or $200 to advertise that they're making, remanufacturing the sign for us.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
I had one question though. On the quote from BBT, they say that they're gonna get the full 5x6 urethane panel to be carved. So I wonder if we should clarify with them, because if they're gonna get the whole panel, my point of view would be they might as well carve the whole panel, because they'd have the whole thing. But on the quote, it says that they'd be using acrylic background. So I wonder if we should clarify with them if they can carve the whole sign or if they're going to use like the acrylic, because I think the acrylic's like higher quality, like it looks better in the end. It looks more like authentic. So I don't know if we should clarify, not to say that we shouldn't vote on it, but I don't know if we should clarify with them to make sure that they could carve the whole thing. Because I don't think it's that much more work, really.
When you say carve the whole thing, you don't mean the whole 10-foot panel that they're gonna buy.
The 5x6.
Once they cut the 5x6 out of the panel they're gonna buy, then you mean carve the lettering and everything?
Yeah.
You don't think the acrylic numbering lettering is going to be sufficient?
I think it would be sufficient, but I don't think it looks as high quality as if the whole thing's carved, because I think it will look more
A little more flashy on the numbers, the letters?
it'll look more flashy if it's acrylic. I think if it's hand carved, then it'll look more rural. Yeah, maybe that's the more country.
Country.
Yeah, I guess.
Fit in.
Yeah.
What if we vote to approve them to manufacture it with the quote they provided, and you and I do a field trip over there in the next couple of weeks and have an in-house conversation if they can do that instead of the letter. We can report back to the group.
That makes
Are
sense.
they gonna install it?
They are going to install it.
Yep.
It's installed too, wow. That's a good deal.
It
That's
is.
very good deal.
These other companies, we have to go pick it up and install it.
I told the guy because
So money.
it's public information that we're seeking $5,000 for this, and that maybe he should have quoted a little more. He says, "Well, we're going to use some of the paints we have." I said, "Yeah, but we should be paying for everything to use in that school. So even if you wanted another 100 or 200 to pay for paints," I said, "that would not be out of the question." I said, "I wouldn't let you modify your quote to, to a 2,000 or 2,500 at this point, but if it was another 150, 200 needed for acrylic paints," I said, "that would not be an issue." So I'll make, the motion has been made to approve and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing all in favor?
Joan has her hand up, though.
No, that was I.
An aye hand. Motion passes unanimously. Good job, Craig.
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
Yes,
Hard
good
work.
job, Craig.
I think next time you should volunteer to hand carvage yourself.
Yeah, I could have actually. I made my own violence.
Okay, so I'll email Derek back telling him the news pending funding in May. And that you and I would like to, are you available any day during the week for a visit?
Yeah, I can make some time.
Go have a chat. All right, number 4, Holy Angels. I don't really think there's anything to discuss. Stone window repair replacement. I made the statement last month that if we can get the $25,000 warrant article for historic commission source of funding, that we could then seek quotes to replace the missing stone windows in the front of Holy Angels. Greg and I did take a tour of Holy Angels on Sunday afternoon. We went over there. Craig took a video of the interior of the building. It doesn't appear to me to have changed much in the last 10 years, other than what the contractor did to rip the whole guts of the inside basement out. Poke a few holes elsewhere, and the leaks in the ceiling, it did a moderate amount of damage to the ceiling, but that ceiling isn't very valuable ceiling, so looks structurally sound. Any other thoughts on it, Greg?
No, I think you wrapped it up pretty good.
It appears that the roof repairs have sealed the leaks. Nothing seemed to be soaking wet on the floor, where it was back in December when I went in. Piles of ceiling tiles had dissolved, and then piles of these crumbly gray things that used to be ceiling tiles that were a puddle of water, and it appear to be damp now, not soaking wet. So I think they're slowly trying. There's no heat in the building, so.
No. Not good for that building.
All right, I'm going to skip to number 6, if I may, past the Grange for the moment. Number 6, I was notified by our town planner, Michael Antonelli, that an individual apparently had purchased 33 Milford Street sometime in the recent past, which is 3 houses up from the VFW building on the same side. It's a house that is labeled built in 1844. Not a terribly attractive home, but an old house. And he apparently went in and gutted everything out of it, stripped it right down to the studs, wires hanging, just a mess. And apparently decided he can't handle it or doesn't want to handle it, or it's too expensive, or we have no idea what the reasons are, but he's put it up for sale. And I was notified that we might want to put a demolition delay on it. So I asked the question, is somebody intending to demolish it? And the answer was no. No information, he's intending to demolish it. So I guess it was just a heads up. I don't know if it's something we would want to do anything about, or we have the authority to do anything about while he's trying to resell the property.
Not until somebody tries to delay, applies for a demolition permit.
Yeah.
Then that trigger.
We would be notified, and
Yeah.
that's what I thought. All right, so that's just a piece of information. 33 Milford Street, if anybody drives by, and there's not much to see. It looks like there's a large pile of debris in the side yard. You can barely see from the street. Almost sounds like a repeat of Holy Angels. Let's buy it, let's do something with it. They're at a parking lot. God, I don't want to do it anymore.
So now it's gonna be sold as is,
Because
because he's not doing it.
What's the price they're asking for it? Does
I
anybody-
don't know for certain. I thought I saw something in the mid-hundreds, 150 or something like that, but I am not positive, Joe. All right, number 7, warrant article for limited funding for an emergency. That's just a carryover from the last 2 months. That's a warrant article that's going, I would assume, probably before the FinCom here sometime in the next few weeks. And I attended the selectmen meeting last week, 2 weeks ago. And when they were presented with 37 warrant articles, they all kind of panicked, and they spent an hour talking about how long it will take to go through the 37 warrant articles. They didn't cover any of them. And I said to myself, if they had covered 15 of them in the hour, at least they would have had something accomplished. So I don't know where that stands, but the selectmen have to review those 37. And I was told 2 days ago that 4 more are going to be added, even though it's past the deadline. They apparently had them and didn't put it on or something. I don't know what all that's about. So they got to go through all those. And you get the finance committee's input into whether we can even afford to do all 37 articles that are on that list of maybe out of control. I don't know. But 3 of them are us. We've got the Heritage Park sign, we've got the Grange building, and we've got the $25,000 request for funding of our commission to do things when we need to do them. All right. I'm going to jump back to number 5, the Grange building update. I guess I won't say out loud that I kind of regret going after a Mass State grant, but we've been working intensively for the last month on this state grant application. We managed to secure a contract with an architect, Scott Richardson, who works for Norman Richardson, something out of Hopkinton, and lives on Grove Street. And we managed to secure an attorney, Nealon and Click. And David Click is an Upton resident, lives in town. So he has just completed, as of yesterday, got a title review on the Grange building. And
Let's call him Click, K-L-I-C-K,
C-L-I-C-K,
C-L-I.
David Click.
And he was a what, attorney?
He's an attorney for Nealon and Nealon and Click. They're in another outfit in Hopkinton, but he lives in Upton.
Okay.
So he's gotten, I assume, I don't know for a fact, but I think the Worcester Registry of Deeds does the title review. I think they have people there that do it. So the deed has 2 encumbrances on it, which we didn't know 2 months ago. The Grange borrowed $20,000 from the state Grange in 2015 to replace the rotted sills on the building.
So, sorry, how much was it?
20,000.
Okay.
There was 2 of them, but a total of
They
20,000.
borrowed it, I thought it was granted to him, gifted to him.
It was given to them as a mortgage, requiring no payments and set to expire in 10 years unless they sell the building, at which point they have to pay the mortgage. So no payment on the mortgage, it expires almost 3 years from now.
3 years. From
2 years from this December, so almost 3 years down the road. And I don't think the State Historical Commission is going to look very happily on those 2 encumbrances to their deed. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they see that there's no obligation.
People would either.
There's no obligation, but they needed the money to replace the sills. And
Yeah.
of all the repairs that are needed to that building, I would have said the sills were probably the number 1 priority. If you can't keep the building standing, what's the point of painting? So all that work was done in 2015, and those mortgages will expire at the end of 2025 with no payment required.
And who did they borrow it from? Grange borrowed
The state Grange.
State Grange.
And the state Grange, I can't say I completely understand it, but if the Grange, the Upton Grange were to sell the building, the state Grange would take all of the proceeds and put them in their bank account. Don't quite get that, but it must go back to some agreement that was signed 80 or 100 years ago. So in essence, even though the deed doesn't say it, in essence, the state Grange owns the building. And because of it, the state Grange has to approve the grant application and a preservation restriction being put on the deed.
Ugh.
Mass State Historical Commission, as part of the grant, requires, and there was a form that we've got filled out and signed by a couple members of the Grange, giving permission to have a preservation restriction put on the deed. It would have to be put on the deed probably this summer before the state commission would issue any payments for any work done. All that's fine, no problem, until the state Grange stepped in and said, wait a minute, you didn't ask our permission ahead of time, and we're not happy about that. And Kristen and I basically told the guy, get over yourself, we need to fix the building. So they had a meeting a week ago Saturday, and they told us the night before, because I went to a Grange meeting in town the night before, and one of the state guys was there. He said, we'll have an executive meeting Saturday morning, this was 2 weeks ago, and you'll get a letter within 2 or 3 days, probably approving the whole process. No letter has arrived yet. And as of 3 hours ago, I talked to Kristen, she talked to the head of the state Grange, and he said they're having a meeting March 18th to discuss the issue again. And Kristen proceeded to tell him that the deadline for the grant application is March 17th. We need your approval before March 17th so we can submit this grant application. So I emailed Kristen the grant application, parts 1 through 4, everything we have done about 2 hours ago, and she was going to forward that to the head of the state Grange. Those documents had been sent to their secretary or somebody by me 2 weeks ago, and apparently they have no knowledge of it.
They don't have their.
So after all of our hard work, the state Grange is holding this thing captive. So I told Kristen that no matter what, grant application will be mailed no later than next Friday afternoon, with or without the state approval. If we get approval the week following, we'll just mail the letter off to the Boston, to the State Historical Commission, to be added to the grant application. But in no way, shape, or form are we going to not submit it unless the state Grange comes back and says, absolutely, we will not give you permission, and then we'll be done. We'll be back to CPC money only. So that's the bad news, or the interim news. I don't know if it's bad yet. In the meantime, I spent an entire weekend, a week and a half ago, drafting part 4 of the application, which was very intense. It took me about 8 or 9 hours to document every portion of that building inside and out, answer about 100 questions. I forwarded that to Scott Richardson, the architect, and he's required to finish that document. And the last I got from him a week ago was, what's the deadline? So he's got it. I'm optimistic he will finish it, but we may see it at, 3:00 Friday afternoon next Friday, which is the day that's the deadline to get the grant application all put together. I'm trying to pull together one more meeting with Tracy Perkins and Kristen Paulson to go over all 100 parts of the application to make sure we haven't missed anything and that everything is tidied up, signed off in the proper format in a 3-ring binder with 100 photographs that have been taken of the building inside and out to document its condition. So lots of fun. Don't think I'd ever do it again. But the process, the way it evolved, and I can't say I completely understood it when I started. The way it's being presented to the state is it's a $160,000 project. We're seeking $80,000 from the state, $80,000 from the CPC. You have to have 75% of the total funding available at the beginning of the project to get the state grant. So 75% of 160,000 is 120,000. We have asked the CPC for 120,000. So if we get the grant, if everything goes well, fingers crossed, we have a $160,000 project. When the project is done, we will have $40,000 remaining of CPC funds. We can use for any cost overruns. We can use to replace all the windows. We can use to finish something else on the exterior of the building, because everything suggests that 160, actually $200,000 is not enough to do the restoration we're trying to do. Even though when we first started, we thought we could do it for 100. So that's that exciting project. It's roof replacement, siding repairs, painting, lead abatement, handicap ramp replacement for $45,000, $50,000 possibly. Front steps have to be modified because they don't meet code. Hopefully window replacement. And the architect was pushing for the restoration of one of the bathrooms, and I told him, I haven't got a response from him, but I told him we have to pull that because this board here did not approve any interior work. It had to be all exterior restoration. If we have $10,000 or $12,000 left when all is said and done, then we can have a little vote and discuss whether to put it into their bathrooms or not give them money at all. But that's a year from now. Any questions?
That would, if they're all approved, it would start in the fall also.
The process with the state grant is grant awards June 24th, a meeting that has to be attended by me and the architect July 6th, probably to go over all the procedures they're going to require. The months of July and August to prepare all the bid documents. The months of September and October for the bid documents to go public. Selection of contractors late October, early November. So basically, no work can start until November. And, we have an early winter, then no work starts until next April. All work has to be complete no later than June 30th of next year, or the state grant will not pay you any remaining funds.
Sheesh.
Really?
The state grant is the historical.
The state grant, the Mass Historical Commission state grant says you must be absolutely done by June 30th. If any invoices come in after June 30th, they will not pay.
They will not pay. Oh my.
So they're basically telling you the process takes this long and you got this much time to do it first. And you have to have I had a debate with the guy in Boston, the head guy in Boston. And I said, this whole thing is insane. You got to have an architect, you got to have an attorney. He said, yeah, but an architect only costs 8 to 10% of the project. I says, could you tell me what state you live in, sir? I said, we got two proposals from two architects. One was $38,000 and one was almost $60,000. I said, I talked to the guy at 60,000 down to 11 and said, I will write all the documents. You just put your stamp on and tweak them if you have to. And he lives in town, so he's willing to help us out. But I said, 11, 12,000 for an architect, 3,000 for attorney, it's 15,000. And I said, the Grange only got $20,000. If they would have spent 15, they'd be broke. I said, so the current plan is that at least 5 of the 15 will be paid out of CPC funds. The remaining 40,000, so it doesn't affect the state grant, which says you can't pay the attorney out of grant funds.
You can pay out of CPC funds. Attorney fees,
Can't?
can't pay it.
CAN or CAN with a T at the end?
Yeah,
Can't, yeah.
you can pay attorney fees out of CPC funds.
And they require a sign. The sign must be erected within 30 days after receiving the grant. We have to find a sign company, and they said the signs only cost $500. I said, well, if it's the same $500 as your attorney costs, we'll be spending $2,000 or $3,000 to go get a sign made somewhere. So we might need one of these sign guys again, Craig.
Yeah.
I've seen the signs before. I haven't paid much attention to them. You drive, through some cities and towns, you see this building is being restored using state grant money or something. I've seen some of those signs, but I don't know. We'll throw a sign together for $500.
Just a vinyl sign.
Didn't the DPW say they would make a sign for us for Heritage Park?
That's so, yeah.
They can whip one out quick, I
No,
think.
I can talk to Dennis. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
And then we're gonna put it up too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the semi-bad news in all of this is the Grange is on the hook for whatever costs are incurred for the attorney and the architect if they don't get the state grant. Then that'll have to come out of the funds. So this whole grant thing meeting you went to, Joan, you didn't get the bad side of it.
Yeah, I know. I'm listening to this and my heart goes out to you because I know you put so much work into this, Ed, and and the Grange people also. I thought I heard from Kristen a couple of weeks ago that the state Grange met and that they approved it all.
The state Grange met and have said nothing since other than you didn't give us this document, you didn't give us a complete grant. They wanted a completed grant application for their meeting 2 weeks ago. We're still working. So we emailing it to them tonight, but it's technically not complete. It's close.
Yeah.
And, after you spend 15 or 20 or 25,000 on an architect and everything else, it was originally we were going to get 60,000 for the grant. We would have spent 20 to 30,000 on stuff that wouldn't go onto the building. And it was almost made sense to say, get the CPC money, keep it in-house, keep it local, but it's worth the effort, it's worth the education, but I just have to be careful. We don't impact the Grange's ability to survive.
Right, right. Oh.
Quite the painful process. And I was reading the newspaper, one of the local newspapers 3 or 4 days ago, and I kind of smiled. There was an article written by a reporter after attending a North Smithfield Council meeting where they were discussing whether they should hire a full-time grant writer. Many of the towns around have hired grant writers. I don't know what they're going to pay this person, but to go after multiple grants from the state to do things in town, it's probably worth hiring somebody and paying them $70,000, $80,000. I said,
right.
Geez, after the experience I have.
You could apply.
No. Thought about it for a brief second and said, all right. Brings us to number 8.
Hey.
The reason you come every time.
Oh, shucks. Oh, blushing.
Social media discussion.
Everything is going smoothly. One question I did have for all folks is, so if you know Linda Gay, she's been kind of going on Facebook. She's getting people to kind of talk about the Knowlton Ristine building. She hasn't reached out to our page directly, like she hasn't sent me an inbox, but I feel it's a matter of time until she.
She's reached out to me.
Okay, because like I'm just in general, I mean on like social media, she hasn't like come at our page yet, but I'm just curious. Folks take like when does it get to a point when we have to make a statement on social media in regards to just what I know what her crew wants or what they're advocating for, and I know like for the most part like we have to stay neutral as much as we can, but I feel at some point we'll probably have to put out some sort of statement, especially the town meeting less than say like a month away. Sorry, 2 months away.
Well, I have not stated my opinion, but I will. We have a handful of buildings in town that are owned by the town. We have 2 of them about to be empty. Holy Angels Church, which has been empty since 2011. Knowlton Ristine building, which is about to lose the library probably in the next 2 or 3 months. And we'll have only the Historic Society in it. I believe the message from the town fathers, our selectmen, there's not enough money to come up with a plan to do something with both of those buildings. Now, I don't know if they've said there's enough money to come up with a plan for one of those buildings, but there's not enough money to come up with a plan for both of those buildings. My personal feeling, separate from this committee, was the only building that has any attraction to me in town is the church. You got 2 opposing churches, which is typical of a lot of downtown commons in small towns of Massachusetts. That would be nice to save. You have Holy Angels sitting on a piece of property that's barely the size of a postage stamp, which in the 21st century, with everybody in an automobile, where do you put the automobiles? There is room behind the building to create a larger parking lot. Craig and I talked about that when we viewed the church. There's a town parking lot across the street from the town hall. I don't know why it was created the size it was, because all the land beyond that parking lot is probably owned by the church, but I don't know that. I don't know how much land the Thompson block owns behind their building. They may own that piece of land.
Oh, between
What?
from
The grassy piece of land that sits below the parking lot by the brook, behind the church and behind the parking lot.
school.
Did the town buy that? Catherine, did the town buy that? Because I thought we bought the gravel lot, and I thought that's what they were referring to when they said the gravel lot.
The gravel lot. Well, we bought at least one of them. I don't know if we have both of them now. But there's space behind the church, but I think it's owned by the Thompson property. I was going to pull up the assessor's map and double check, so I can do that while you guys are.
I was told to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I was curious if the town, because I know we bought the gravel lot, but I wasn't sure exactly what lot that included. If it would be good to know if the town did in fact own all that land behind the church, or if the Thompsons still own it.
Yeah, I think some of it's definitely part of the lot that the arcade building is on. So it's not like the whole swath is.
They own that grassy knoll used to be the telephone office. The house we tore down. Turned that into a parking lot.
Yeah,
building you talk-
Right
They
beside
talked
the
about it.
library.
Right beside the library, coming up Main Street or going down Grove Street?
Main Street, between the library and or that country soup, but the house before country soup. He tore that house down before 2020, I believe it was. Yeah, used to be the telephone office in there.
I could envision, if it could ever be accomplished, is buying the property from Thompson. Not the Thompson block, but where the brewery is. And then taking that whole piece of thing and make a parking lot or a common and a parking lot out of it, and that would solve the problem for the church.
Yep.
To then turn the church into something. The Knowlton Ristine building, I know Linda is very strong on the historic value of it. It was built 25 years after the Holy Angels Church was built. it was modified. Yeah, can I get past the fact that they modified the original Methodist church appearance of it? Kind of, but it looks like a barn. I hate to say it. It looks like it's got aluminum siding on it. You know, could it be turned into something? Well, now you're talking putting maybe as much money into that to do something with it as you would to make Holy Angels Church into something. And I think both of them, you're talking $2, $3, $4 million to do something with it. So I don't have any feelings past any of that. That if we were to lose one of them, I can't see trying to get a citizen's petition of a small group of people, whatever the minimum required is, and go to town meeting and have everyone pass it, say, yes, we must keep the building. But you might as well say in the same sentence, your taxes are gonna go up. So at some point, you might keep that building, you better put several $1 million to make something. And do we have something that somebody can think of that we should turn it into? Well, the sad reality is, no, we don't. If there was some pressing need, like a senior center or a new library or something, then you could say yes, but you've already made that decision. You've already made the decision to spend $12 million to build a senior center library. Rather than, you know, let's build a senior center, put a bridge across the river and turn the church into a library, or turn that into the senior center and a new building for a library. But all those decisions are under the bridge, and, you know, the horse is already out of the gate. So I don't know where to take it from there. Did you get the stuff I emailed you a couple weeks ago in the Grange, put up on our Facebook page? Because I never heard anything back from you. I sent you several documents. Because we talked about making that more of a, because I'd like to see something put in the little news, our new newspaper, about the Grange work that's being done. Maybe you could contact them to see if they would write up an article to put in their next newspaper that the Grange is seeking funds to restore their building, Upton's oldest schoolhouse.
You know, yesterday I went to the library and they're putting in that $45,000 rent for a library that's going to be there.
Is that 45,000?
$45,000. That was the budget for.
Someone has the sense to stop it.
Wait, what?
This was 3 years ago.
Right. And they knew at that time, obviously, they've been looking at the library.
This library, they're gonna put a $45,000 rent.
Yes.
Yes. And I, because I was there yesterday, but it's they already had the door there. And of course, they've got a desk in front of it, so nobody goes out that door. This food will drop. So I said, is it going all the way out to the road or what? But Sue, who works there, said, no, it's going to go from there all the way down. I said, what's going to be one long ramp, isn't it? And yes, it is.
That was a huge issue.
A very huge issue, and my comment was, once you get into the library and the lobby, you are not getting through the stacks in a wheelchair.
Mhm. That wasn't the issue. The issue
It was not the
you
issue.
got to get people in the wheelchair into the building. They don't have to go anywhere once they're in there, but
That was their issue.
Yeah.
Little asinine, I think, but it's their issue.
talk about pound foolish and
Yeah.
wise. They could take the money and go put the ramp on Range.
There you go. That's what they should be doing.
Same people,
Take,
same distance.
take that material, it's the same price.
Could they do that? Could they like switch that to the Grange?
No, legally no. Can you guys see the
See?
map I'm sharing?
Yeah. So the
Okay.
Thompson block owns all of that land behind the parking lot.
Right.
That
So the town owns the 2 parking lots, and the town owns this behind the church that scoots behind
This
the
was
church.
the-
That's the old GAR. But this big swath is all part of the Thompson property plot.
That's the church. That's the
Yeah.
church. That's
This
the
is the church.
JR.
Yeah,
That's the new library.
right here. Yeah.
But this huge block is the Thompson block.
Yeah, so the Thompson block, it's like square on the road basically, and they just own everything diagonally back to the creek. So that
So
cuts off a lot of space.
my comments were, if the town were to work on I believe they own the GAR block. They own the church. They own the 2 Grove Street block. I think they own the 3-0 Grove Street, whatever that one is at the bottom of the brook.
Yeah, the mapper says that they own that as well. So, which I thought
If they
did.
were to acquire this and then develop this into something.
Yeah, I mean that's something that's I think it's a question of whether the Thompsons want to sell it to the town, if the town actually wants to buy more property with the expectation of having to develop it themselves instead of getting an outside person to work with Thompson directly. I don't know if they're interested. They don't honestly seem to be interested in doing too much at the moment, which is unhelpful. But you're right that the biggest portion of land there is not owned by the town, which does make it harder.
That explains why the parking lot was made the way the parking lot was made.
Right. So that's why things are shoehorned in there in like a weird way. And then there's all that space and you're like, why didn't they use the rest of this lot? Because it's not the same lot.
Yeah, so you got the town owns 4 of those 5 lots. They don't own the one right now. The biggest one. Oops.
They probably should have just purchased the Thompson lot and put the community center right there. You know, if they owned it all.
Yeah.
You can't really put too much there because it's a floodplain. So there's all these conservation restrictions and also just like it will flood. So there's like a bunch of limitations to what you can actually put right here. You can see some of it's spelled out in the chart about flooding. That's what like the green is. So.
Yeah.
So there is parking behind the church though, a little bit. Probably 10 spaces or something, I guess. I mean,
The side
you
of the
can
church.
make into it.
It's not really behind the side.
It's that driveway you mean?
There's some, well, it looks like it extends back to the brook. Looks like there is some land behind the church,
Yeah.
but it's probably like 10 parking spots or something.
Yeah. The one thing I struggled with was how was there a large GAR building on that little block? It just doesn't make any sense when you look at it on the map and you stand there and look at it. But that picture shows it was a pretty good sized building.
Yeah.
I've heard that the bridge was actually a little bit over, like the creek got rerouted supposedly slightly.
It was, that turn was right angles. They turned that.
Yeah, somebody
Spun it around.
Yeah, they moved the creek.
1940. An army truck. They missed the turn, went straight across the town common. Killed the guy.
Ooh.
Killed the guy sitting on the bench of the town common. The army truck ran him over and killed him.
Really? Wow.
Sitting on the bench.
Huh?
Sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
Mine is the
Wilder Temple.
Thank you, Catherine. That was very helpful.
Wilder Temple.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Said the blood was everywhere.
Okay, item number 9 is a placeholder for Upton's 300th anniversary, so we won't need to discuss that. And
I did make a rough draft though,
okay,
but yeah, I did.
Oh, let's see.
you and Joan and Russ are supposed to discuss that.
Votes, Land Marshal, Boy Scouts, town officials, local organizations. What's scavenger hunt?
I figured the oldest Upton citizen will be playing you, me, and Joan.
Yeah.
We'll be riding in the limo.
You can ride it.
As long as they're not riding in the
Yeah.
hearse, we're okay. So,
I remember many
I was in a horse-drawn buggy.
did she?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be fun.
years ago, my grandmother lived in Marlborough, New Hampshire, and they used to have a cane. I don't know if it's the Historic Society. The oldest person in town held the cane. She got it.
Yeah, it's over here.
And then it passes down, or does it, yeah.
It supposedly passes on if somebody goes
Yeah.
there.
Boston Post.
Down,
Every
fundraiser,
city in town.
that.
That's probably how it started.
Well, They didn't know what, the family didn't know what to do with it, so they put it in the coffin with the guy.
The commemorative coin, and but my husband was the one who suggested, I think, to Ida Porter to have the coin for the 270. Was it?
Seeing an abandoned,
Yeah. So you could, because obviously you sell the 1 through 10 are the more important ones, and you could sell them for a little bit more. Maybe have a copper and a bronze or whatever. So that's what I was going to. Now, what I did notice though online is that most towns don't start till at least 5 years ahead. Some start only a year ahead for that, their big anniversaries. But as Joan said, you want to maybe put aside some money.
Well, I know a ton of effort was made in planning the Mayflower 400th anniversary. A lot of effort was made. And what happened? COVID. And there was no celebration. Because I know a lot of people worked on that. I think the parade they had in November, this 4 months ago, was the parade they were supposed to have 2 years ago.
oh,
Yeah, floats were made, money was spent and,
Well-laid plans.
and so it never hurts.
we got the shrines, the planners came.
Hey, if we have a draft, we can pass on down the line in this commission or whatever.
Yeah.
The plans, it would make it
Do you
easy.
want to look at?
No, I want you three to review it and bring it to the May meeting as well. Planning.
Well, I figured that they do one too, so we can compare it. So.
Yeah, sweatshirts.
Good fundraiser,
Sweatshirt, the name up there, I don't know.
My hats.
Should include your schools in it some fashion.
Sweatshirt, hats,
For the kids, it could be like birthday hats.
t-shirts.
That's
Did you
expensive.
find anything?
I did. I found.
You gotta have small, medium,
accent.
Well, it's, and you gotta have an accent, you gotta
on it.
charge enough.
children,
Yeah, and children's, yeah.
limited to one. Large exercise. Yeah, yeah. The elastics on the side.
If there's anything that helps them raise money as well when they have their next fundraiser fair in the summer. They only raise a couple thousand each year. They're gonna restore that building. Is all taken care. So. Because originally planned to do landscaping, it's what I threw into the last restoration, but after talking to the architect and the state, there'll be no money for landscaping. It's probably, it'd be nice to pave their parking lot. So I should ask the CBC for 400,000.
The town wouldn't own the Grange building, correct?
Say that
The
again.
town would not own the Grange building. The state Grange would own that,
That's correct.
and it's tax free, we get no tax money from that.
If the town range were to sell the building or repurpose it, the state range would take the building. If the town range were to sell the building, the state range takes all the money.
Takes all the money.
They don't give any back.
They wouldn't get the building though. There would be a restriction on the building,
Well,
preservation restriction on it.
if we get the Mass State grant,
Yeah.
they're required to file a preservation restriction. I believe we voted at this meeting that they have to file a preservation restriction.
Yeah.
The preservation restriction that I propose would be an external preservation restriction, so they can't change the outside of the building, the appearance of it. The preservation restriction the state range the state historic commission requires is an exterior and interior. They can't change anything of any significance without state historic commission.
But another building be put on next to the Grange, maybe a garage or storage shed.
I don't know.
That would be part to be put in there.
And there was even a question on the application that
Historic
asked if there was going to be any underground work done. You're going to dig any holes? And I immediately highlighted to Kristen Paulson and Tracy that there's only one reason that question's on there. Because the first thing the state would say, well, you have to hire an archaeologist before you can dig the hole. So I said, the answer is anyways, we're not digging anything. We're going to dig a 1 foot hole for a footing.
There was a pad, a cement pad over there with a roof on it at one time. The Grange, they collected newspapers, they sold newspapers. That was a source of funding for them. somebody set it on fire. And up it went.
Lucky the building didn't go with it.
The people who live in the neighborhoods is no more.
It's quite an impressive building from the outside, but you go in and there's nothing historically
No,
attractive house inside. It's a big school building. I think the stairway going upstairs is the most,
yeah,
it's an interesting,
yeah.
the railing is embedded into the wall. I mean, things you don't see today. I mean, some of the stuff like that, but.
Yeah.
All right, anything else for tonight's meeting?
I have something, tomorrow night, we're having a Future of the Historical Society meeting in the Milton Racine building in the Fay Room, because we're trying to decide what the vision is gonna be for the Historical Society going forward, where they're gonna wanna house their collection, what options they have available to them, because like Ed had mentioned, the library is moving out in a month, so they're gonna be the only residents in the Racine building, so we kind of have to, and we don't know what the board of selectmen say about that. They charge them rent for staying in the building, things like that, so we're gonna discuss all these different topics tomorrow. In
What
the
time is that?
6:30 in the Fay Room.
What's the favorite?
That's the second floor. It's right next to the museum. If you've been to that.
Walk up the stairs.
Yeah.
They should move downstairs so someone can get some use out of that ramp.
So, I mean, the implication for the historical commission is as we know, if the historical society dissolves, we are responsible for the museum. So we have to have a contingent plan for their collection, where it will be housed or it'll be disposed of, or, so we have to plan for that, I guess.
Do you know where like Tom's leaning with things with that?
I don't think it's all up in the air. I don't think he has like a real, I think he wants to stay in the building, but
His presentation to us 2 months ago was he'd like to move downstairs and have the first floor.
Right.
Yes.
So I remember that.
And
I
I
know
said,
that
you should
changed.
just do it and not tell, but once you own it.
Okay. Ask for forgiveness later.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think anybody would be upset if he did, honestly.
Yeah.
The selectmen aren't trying to get rid of that building and don't have approval to do so, even if they wanted to. So there's no like short term, despite Linda Gay and her, trying to keep hold of it. There's nobody actually trying to get rid of it right now.
Right. No, I just don't know if it would be in such a condition he could actually move downstairs. I mean, it's one thing to say it, but once they tear all those shelves down and bookshelves, whether it's even presentable enough for him to move down there, it'd be a lot of work. I think he told me that each one of those floors is 3,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And he's got the whole floor filled.
Yeah.
I don't know how the hell he would attempt to move all that stuff down.
No, the top floor too. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on stuff up there too.
How are they dealing with members?
I think they have quite a few members, but they're low on financial funding. I mean, if Tom had suggested that maybe we tell the board of selectmen that we pay rent, but I mean, I said, what if the board of selectmen comes back and says we're going to charge $1,000 a month? That's their whole budget wiped out in 2 months, so that might not be a good idea.
Let's see if I can get there.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. If anyone wants to attend here, let me know for sure.
All right.
Yeah, it's 6:30. I think it's just gonna be a brainstorming session where
Yeah.
we're just gonna throw out ideas and see what's feasible. It'll stick to the wall.
You should put those in the minutes.
Okay.
All right, motion to adjourn this meeting. There's no further discussion. Do I have a
So moved.
second? All in favor?
Aye.